Hello, my name is Melissa with Mail Inspirations, and today we're going to be doing a really fun piece. This dresser I found off of Facebook Market. It was only $10, and I was really excited, but realizing that this had a lot of damage, especially at the very top, and you'll kind of see here it's really bumpy. There was a lot of water damage, and I am going to be putting quite a bit of work into this, but I'm pretty excited, and this is going to be a really good learning experience. So first off, I'm going to be cleaning this dresser with White Lightning by Dixie Belle, and it's pretty much a TSB cleaner. It's going to wipe off any gunk, germs, whatever on the dresser, and that way we'll get it nice and clean for when we're getting ready to paint. I like to also clean the inside of the drawers just in case. It did have a really musty smell to it because of the water damage, so I want to make sure it was as clean as possible. I am removing the hardware so that way I can paint around the area, and then I'm also going to be replacing them. Alright, so I wanted to kind of even out the top of it just because it was very uneven from the water damage. This is not real wood, so it's particle board with I think a veneer top, like a layer of like sticker fake wood. So I wasn't too worried about the top because I was going to replace it with actual wood on top, and that way it would look a lot nicer than what it is. But I just wanted to even it out so everything would stay flush. The night before, I added some Dixie mud to fill in any imperfections and scratches on the piece, and then I just went ahead and sanded everything down so that way it would be even. I'm also going to be using this sandpaper sheet just to get in the areas that I couldn't reach with my machine, just basically around the drawers and the little nooks and crannies. After all that sanding, I decided to give it a good wash with some soapy water just to make sure to get any dust off the piece. Alright, so I'm going to be using this Boss by Dixie Belle. One of my biggest concerns after I sanded down the very top of the dresser is the water damage really took effect on the dresser. Once I opened up that dresser, it really smelled musty and old and like mildew, and Boss is really going to be able to help cover that stink up, and it's also going to be able to make the piece more even and better for the paint to stick on. So I like to use this a lot, especially for like really dingy old pieces, and it really does help in the long run. And I did 2 coats of that just to make sure that, you know, there was no possible chance for any more of that mildew smell to come through. Here I did use the Waverly chalk paint in mineral. I just love this color. It is such a cool tone beige, and it was really pretty. You'll see here I did use a different pink color before. I used Burlap and Dixie Belle, but it just came out way too yellow for my liking. So I went ahead and switched it out just because it just wasn't fitting with what I had in mind. And of course I did do 2 coats of the mineral paint just make sure there was good coverage. The first coat, I did add some water to it just to make sure it covered the piece. And then the second coat, I did add a little bit of water too, just so I can get more out of that paint. So this was a really fun part, and I've never done this before, so this was a really good experience. But we're gonna be measuring the 2x4s for the top, and I did not have any machine or blade or jigsaw at the time, so I found this handsaw that was from my dad, and so I tried to go ahead and cut the pieces by hand. So that was a really fun experience. Later on, you'll see I did end up purchasing a jigsaw, and then it made life a little bit easier. But for these planks here, I did it by hand, and it was a little stressful. The table was a little bit wobbly. I have it sitting on some wheels, so it just wasn't sitting even, so I did adjust it. That way I didn't have the issue with it tumbling and cutting myself. Anyway, I cut all 3 pieces, and it turned out great, and I loved it. Alright, so once we got all the sides cut up, I just took my sander and just kind of rounded out the edges, and I did round out the edge towards the front of the dresser. That way it wasn't too sharp for whoever was purchasing this, and just made sure everything was nice and smooth. At this point, I was ready to glue the tops to the table, to the dresser top, and I just used the Gorilla Wood glue, and then I wanted to nail the wood pieces in. I didn't and still don't have a brad nailer or a compressor or anything like that to help kind of get things down, but so I did everything by hand. On the edges there, I left about an inch on either side, so that way it does come out. The back of the dresser, I did leave that piece of wood flush with the back, so that way whoever has it can put it against the wall, and then there is going to be a little bit of an overhang towards the front of that dresser. But here I am using a finishing nail to kind of nail the boards in. It really wasn't too hard, and of course I have a little baby hammer, which I couldn't find my big one, so I used the one that I found. And I love it so much. It's so cute, but it did take a little bit of work with it because it wasn't, as heavy, but it worked, and I did what I could with for the time being, and I came out great, I think. Alright, so I was using some clamps to kind of keep the boards as close together as possible so there weren't any gaps. especially with the front piece. So I had to use 2 clamps for this because I didn't have one that was long enough to keep all of them together. So I learned this actually from another YouTube channel, the Sorry Girls. If you guys know who they are, I saw this little trick, and I'm sure it's a popular trick, but that's the first time I've seen it with them. And they're a great DIY channel, and I love watching them. Anyway, so I use the clamps together so that way I can keep all the wood as close as possible, and it worked out great. This is probably one of my favorite times of any project is staining. I love watching the wood go from bland to something amazing, and it makes me so happy just to see that transformation right in front of my eyes. And so I am using dark walnut. It's one of my favorite color stains, and so I know you're not supposed to use paper towel, but that's what I have, and it works just fine for me. Anyway, so I went ahead and did 1 layer of that. There is one little area you'll see that has some sticker residue. I didn't realize it was there. I'm gonna have to, once it's dry, I'm gonna go ahead and send that little part off, and then just restain it. But in the meantime, I just love staining, and it's probably one of the best parts. I was so proud of myself for getting this done, this wood top. I never done anything like this, and I just felt like a real DIYer building things. It was just such a good feeling, and I think I'm going to be using this same exact method for a dresser I found for my own house. It just came out so beautiful. Alright, so we're going to make some little planks for this little nook area that I created with the dresser. As you saw before, the dresser only came with 2 large drawers, which meant I was missing the bottom 2, as you saw. So what I did is I put those drawers on one side, and then I'm going to have an empty nook basically that I'm going to create shelving for. So I'm going to be creating like a plank style at the bottom of this nook, and you'll see in a minute what it's going to look like. But I kind of want to give it the same planking idea as the top, just to kind of mimic that. And then I also have an idea of making wooden shelves. So I did cut all of these little pieces. They are 1x3s, just so I can get the exact measurements. I'm going to go ahead and pre-stain them now. I put some peel and stick paper up without showing you guys because I lost that footage, and I want to go ahead and just pre-stain the planks, and that way I didn't have to ruin that. But yeah, you'll see in a little bit what I'm talking about. Hopefully you'll understand what I'm trying to say. Alright, and this is how they are looking right now. They're drying from that same stain that I used for the top, and you kind of see at the bottom there what I'm talking about. I'm going to be using 6 of these planks to do the bottom, and then 6 to make the shelving. Alright, so we're back with that Gorilla Glue, and like I said, here is that wallpaper that I didn't show you guys. I just lost that footage and I got a little upset, but it's okay. It's just peel and stick paper. It's, you can look up a tutorial on how to do that. It's really not that hard. But same thing as I did with the top. I put the Gorilla Glue, used the finishing nails to get them nailed in. And then at least this time around, they're already pre-stained, which made it a little bit easier for myself. The peel and stick paper I got from Amazon, and there's quite a bit to choose from, and this is the one that I picked just because I felt like it really went with the colors that I was going for, and it was really girly and dainty, and I really liked it. And it wasn't really that hard to put on. It was a little easy to tear, but as long as you're careful, then it should be just fine. I'm not super familiar with peel and stick. This is my second time using it, but I did have a lot of fun putting it up. In a last minute decision, I decided to use these squared dowel sticks to make it just more finished, and I think it came out a little bit better. I did stain them, as you see here, to match that wood, and I think it just really makes it look more finished. And then I did add some wood glue, so you're going to see some of it kind of peeking out in that corner, but that should dry clear. And oh my gosh, it just came out so nice, and I'm excited. Here I'm going to be doing the shelving that is going to be for that nook. I'm not sure if I'm doing this right or if there was a better way to do this, but I'm just kind of winging it. So basically I'm going to put all the planks together and then putting this little piece of wood underneath, which right now it's upside down, but I'm going to kind of glue them on the sides with the wood glue, and then as I stack them, I'm going to nail them into the in place. I didn't have my clamps with me at the time. My parents had taken them because they're working on their house, so they were using it, and so I was just trying to find a way to do this without using clamps. So it may be the wrong way. If it is, I'm sorry. If there's a better way, please let me know. But this was actually kind of a fun learning experience, and I liked it. And of course, in the end, I did stain those pieces of wood to match the stain. I just did it off camera. I'm going to be using General Finishes water-based top coat in satin, and it's one of my favorite finishes. I've used this in many projects that I've done for around the house, and it really holds up well. Over here, I'm doing the top of the wood. I did do a couple layers, and make sure to sand in between each layer so it doesn't get too rough. And of course, I did it for the bottom of the dresser as well. I like to use the roller on flat surfaces, just that way it'll eliminate any brush strokes. I did end up using it for the top of the wood as well. I just did it off camera, but I just really like to use it here. And then in this particular dresser, because it indents, I did use both the brush and the roller just to make sure that it didn't pull up, or that the stain didn't pull up in the middle of those creases. The next step was to kind of deal with the inside of this dresser. There was a pretty big stain in there, and I'm going to use the butterfly fancy tissues that I found from Tuesday morning, and I'm going to decoupage the bottom of those drawers. I didn't have enough of the peel and stick that I use in those smaller drawers, so I thought this would be a really fun contrast between that, and the butterflies are just really pretty, and I like them. Now with the tissue paper, they're always 2 plies on them, so you have to make sure you take the layers away from each other. It's gonna be just too thick for anyone to work with, so just make sure you take that backing off, and then from there you should be able to go ahead and decoupage. I'm gonna put a bit of Mod Podge at the bottom of the dresser or of the drawer, and then spread it around with that foam brush, and then just very, very carefully lay the tissue paper on there. It is very fragile, so once it starts to stick to the Mod Podge, if you pull it too hard, it will break. So just be gentle, and then I use the foam brush to kind of just press it onto the Mod Podge, and then as it was drying, I did do a second coat on top. Now the tissue paper will wrinkle and crease. To a lot of people that decoupages, that's kind of the look that you're gonna get, is that wrinkled kind of aged look. There is a process where you can do it where it's wrinkle free. I looked into it, but it is a much harder process, I think, and so I just thought that this looked fine, and I didn't really mind the look at all. And here is the finished product, and it is such a difference now. It looks like a brand new dresser, and you wouldn't believe that it only cost $10 with all that water damage that it had before. I started this out in December, and now I'm finished in almost end of February, and I just can't believe it. These knobs I found from Facebook Market, and those handles I got from Amazon. I'll link those below, but they just came out so gorgeous, and I cannot believe how good it looks. If you liked this video or my channel, please like the video and then also subscribe. I would love to see you guys. Comment down below, and I would like to chit chat with you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.